I have the privilege to sit today with Audrey Copeland, President and CEO of NAPA and past President of AAPT. Thank you for joining us, Audrey.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you.
So, Audrey, I asked a lot of people about you because I wanted to understand what people thought about Audrey. And people refer to you as a role model. Who were your role models when you were coming up through this industry?
Oh, wow. First of all, I think this is a fantastic industry where there are a lot of role models. And so I've been very fortunate to have several. So I think I would probably just start with role models through work, Federal Highway Administration, like John D'Angelo, John Bukowski, Tom Harmon, and then getting more involved with AAPT, moved into people within the industry, and kind of like some of the past presidents here, like John Epps, that I think you interviewed earlier, Bob McGinnis, Dave Newcomb, folks like that. So I think really there's so many that what I would say to kind of just wrap up this, my thoughts on this is that it's not hard to find a role model, and you don't have to even, it doesn't even have to be that formal. So I think there are different folks who can inspire you in different ways, and so we're very fortunate in this industry to have many folks like that, and I think AAPT is where a lot of them come together. So
very good. So what brought you into the asphalt paving industry to start with?
Yeah, so really it was the opportunity to do research in pavements, and so I was finishing up in civil engineering, and I had decided to stay in school for my master's degree. Back at that point in time, they were talking about requiring a master's to be able to become a professional engineer. And I quickly learned that you could get your school paid for. And so the Tennessee Department of Transportation was sponsoring research in the area of bulk specific gravity air void content determination. And so I decided to stay for my master's, and that's what paid the bills for school. So
was that your master's thesis was about bulk specific gravity and air voids?
Exactly. Yeah, essentially it was kind of proving out all the different methods and really proving out core lock. So getting the DOTs comfortable where they were adopting core lock at the time. So
very good.
Yeah.
So you began at the FHWA as your first career, and eventually you moved up to be president and CEO of NAPA. Along the way, you've done a lot of volunteer work or volunteer time in the industry. And when I look at your resume, the word service comes to mind. Where does that come from?
I think actually it goes actually back to my mom being a very good example to me. My mom went back to work when I was a young teenager, and she always was in volunteer type organizations in what she did. Well, even before she went back to work, I was raised with her doing Meals on Wheels and things like that. And my mom was very active in women's organizations in Nashville, Tennessee. And so anyways, I think that was part of my upbringing. And then also just the realization that it creates opportunities to get to know other people and to really broaden your horizons. I love to learn. And I also think people were giving me the opportunity. People were asking me. And so anyways, yeah, I guess it just kind of came naturally, but it also came from an upbringing of giving back, and this industry has just been very good to me, and I love it. So just having that willingness to serve the industry and serve others. So
you were one of the founding members of the Women of Asphalt, and you sit on their board as the secretary. How did that come about?
Yeah, so that one's actually interesting. I'll be honest, I was actually a skeptic of that at first. Mainly just, I almost had to get outside myself, I think I was being a little bit selfish or short-sighted at the time, because when the idea was presented by Amy Miller, it was really her brainchild. I thought, I don't want to be recognized for as a woman, I just want to do my work and be able to perform and achieve just because of what I do. And I think where I say I was short-sighted is going back to the role model, not realizing that creating opportunities for women to see other women in this industry and spotlighting that, highlighting that, is something that was very much needed. And so once I kind of got out of my own head of, well, I don't want to just be thought of as a woman, then I realized how important it was. And also through the organization I lead right now, NAPA, just seeing our members embrace it. We weren't sure what they were going to think. It's a male-dominated industry. And they quickly realized, no, we want women in this industry. We want it to be a diverse industry. It's an important component of the workforce to be able to recruit women, because there is a lot to be done in our country, right? To maintain our infrastructure, to build it, for us to maintain our economic competitiveness, and women need to be a part of that. And things are better when they're at the table, right? Yeah. So anyway, so then it quickly just made me realize this isn't about you, you know, this is about something bigger than you, and showing other women what can be done in this industry. And it also did become personal, because I actually had a woman that came into the industry that told me, it was because of you. I saw you speaking, and I saw you, you know, what you were standing for. And so just that one situation, or that one occurrence, made me realize how important it was. So, yeah.
I can share with you, we had an intern, and we sponsored a table at a Women of Asphalt event. And she was finishing up high school and thinking about going on to San Diego State, or she had been accepted. After that dinner, and she saw Amy Epps Martin and Mary Tykert speak, and it actually motivated her, and she is now a graduate civil engineering student.
Oh, see, that's fantastic.
And it's because of Women of Asphalt that actually made her think, maybe this is something that I should do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I mean, it really goes back to, I feel very fortunate to be part of this industry, and why would I not want anyone else to have that opportunity? And that's what Women of Asphalt is about. So.
Yeah, setting that example is, I have a daughter, and it's always nice to see other people making sure that there are examples for women. And, you know, you want to make sure that they don't limit their own capabilities, that they consider everything.
Exactly.
And I think Women of Asphalt did that. I know it did in Jacqueline's case.
Right, that's fantastic.
Yeah. What initially sparked your interest in AAPT?
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. So really two things. So first of all, so I came, I had finished my master's degree and decided to go for my PhD, because I wanted to maybe have the option to be a college professor. And I got the opportunity to have a graduate research fellowship with Federal Highway Administration. And it involved going to their research center in McLean, Virginia to study and do research. And I guess it really, from probably the moment I got there, everybody was like, you have to become part of AAPT. You have to join AAPT, or you have to go to the AAPT annual meeting. So I just kept hearing over and over about this AAPT and how wonderful it was. And really, if you're going to be in this area of asphalt technology, whether you're studying or working, this is where it's at. And so that was just loud and clear, right, from everyone. And then the second thing was, I was encouraged to apply for the scholarship, and I received it, you know. And it's such a unique scholarship, because it's just for, you know, folks in the asphalt industry, and then also it's a check to the student. And I think also what this organization is telling students is, we trust you. We're not going to earmark this money. You don't have to spend it this way or spend it here. So you can spend it to come to AAPT. You can spend it to go to conferences, or you can spend it on your living expenses. And I thought, wow, that's a pretty cool that they trust us, and it's also specifically for those in the asphalt area.
So you were highly encouraged to join AAPT.
Yes. And
eventually you published a paper?
Yes.
And presented?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, I can't remember the specifics. But yes, I am published somewhere in AAPT, and I may have even presented at the workshops, you know, one of the workshops. But I think what I would say there, because since I can't remember the specifics, you know, is first of all, publishing and presenting at AAPT is a huge honor. AAPT is unique in the sense that the papers are long form, so you can really explain what you've done and your research, and so I like that, having that room to do that. And then it can be intimidating presenting at AAPT because there's discussion afterwards, which again is a unique component of AAPT, that there is very robust discussion that is also captured in the journal or in the proceedings. And so I think the story I'll tell that stands out to me is when I worked at Federal Highway Administration, there's a chemist there, Terry Arnold, and he would tell me, he actually used the example of Amy Epps Martin, and that he was always so impressed by her because she would handle the questioning that would just be bombarded at her very calmly and matter-of-factly. And so that kind of stuck in my head, and it just as long as I was well prepared and stayed calm like Amy had done, everything went fine. And I think even though it can be intimidating, at the end of the day, those people who are going to ask you maybe some challenging questions, which is good, at the end of the day, they're going to come up and they're going to pat you on the back and they're going to say, "We're glad you're here. You did a good job. Did you think about this?" And then you get to know that person even better, and you are improving too, because people are bringing things to you that you might not have thought of. So
very good. So eventually you started transitioning to a leadership role in AAPT. How did that happen?
Yeah, I think it goes back to having opportunities. So I think folks had realized that I was willing to serve, and started having opportunities. So probably the biggest one that comes to mind is I was selected to be part of the search committee for when Mike Anderson was hired, when they were looking for a new executive director when Gene Skoke retired. And so that was kind of a real opportunity to work with the leadership of AAPT and do something that was very important to the organization. And so I also think just getting involved in, I think back when I was coming up, the committees were not as strong as they are now. But just being willing to get involved in those kind of informal committee structures and help with new members or whatever. And I'm trying to think what else. I think the other thing I would mention too is just networking. Making yourself available, being at the events. If the executive director, whether it's Gene or Mike, needed something, I'll go do it. And even one thing I try to be mindful of was always asking Eileen too. I'd always try to go by the desk and say, "Is there anything I can do for you? Do you need to go grab a Coke, or do you need a 5-minute break? I'll sit here." And so through that, I just got to know everyone in the organization, and so it resulted in these opportunities for me to start leading. So
how many years do you think you've been coming to AAPT?
So I came, my first year I think was 2006. So what would that be? 27 years now? No, sorry, 17 years.
17
right?
years. Yeah.
Don't need to add 10 years to whoa.
You did it.
Yeah, no, I know, exactly. Woo. So sorry, 17 years. Because I was trying to think. In 2005 is when I got the scholarship, but I think I was not able to go to that meeting. I think it was because I had just come to Turner Fairbank at the end of 2004. And so it was already, too late to kind of get here in March of 2005.
Got it.
But yeah.
So what keeps you coming back to the annual meetings?
Oh man, just probably lots of stuff. I mean, so in the beginning it was the technical content, the technical information, because I was on the technical side of things. But now that I'm in the position I'm in now, I'm not so much on the technical side. So for me, it's truly the networking and being able to hear from folks in terms of what is going on the technical side, just maintaining those relationships. And really, as I was thinking about it, as I was preparing for this, AAPT, sometimes it seems like we're doing I don't want to say minuscule, but we're doing things that are so precise because we're technologists, like we're debating the temperature of a test method, right? Like, should we do it at 27 or 25? Sometimes that can seem minuscule, right? And I've even been guilty of thinking that. But then when I think about it, a lot of times this is where stuff has started that truly improves our pavement system, that has resulted in huge things for our infrastructure and for our roadways, whether it's just probably what went into the development of the interstate highway system. You know, AAPT, we're celebrating 100 years. The interstate system was just developed in the 1950s, 1960s. And so we had a part in that, right? And then you look into like going into the 70s and the increase in RAP use. And then super pave, all of that, you could probably trace all of it back to AAPT and the success of those programs and how we ensured the performance of our pavements. And even now, looking at long life pavements, perpetual pavements, really taking super pave to the next level in terms of testing for performance. I think all that can be traced back to AAPT, and that's pretty exciting when you think about it that way. And so the fact that you're coming and you're hearing about that and things are evolving, it makes you want to be a part of it, right? So,
Dr. Adam Hand had a similar comment.
Okay.
He was talking about some of the work that Dr. John Epps had done.
Mm-hmm.
And he had pointed out that Dr. John Epps and Dr. Carl Monosmith were looking at fatigue testing back in the 60s.
Yeah.
And doing some triaxial testing all the way back into the 60s. And now with the MEPDG,
mm-hmm.
is that right?
Yep.
I'm sorry.
Yep.
So you talk about
got
non-technical.
Yeah.
Now with MEPDG, those concepts are now being used, and it's 60 years later.
All right.
So you said it was minuscule. It's just really beginning to understand and starting the foundation for the future.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So.
What are your reasons behind your continued dedication to AAPT, especially as your time as chairman of the board or president?
Yeah. So I think just because it truly is where it's at for asphalt technologists, and so I think it just continues to be a very important organization that I want to see endure. It's given a lot to me. I think it's been critical to my success in my career. And then in terms of becoming president, first of all, it's just such an honor because it is voted, right? It's essentially an encouragement by your peers to lead this industry and this organization. And it's also an opportunity to keep things rolling along. Because I think one of the things about AAPT is it truly is a volunteer organization. Of course, we have Mike Anderson and Eileen, but they're part-time staff. Well, Eileen's full-time, but there's still a lot that the volunteers have to do. And so it can be a big role to be on the board and to serve as president.
Audrey, you said AAPT was important in your career. So in what ways has AAPT given back to you?
Yeah. Well, going back, of course, to the scholarship, I think it created opportunities for me to get to know other people well enough to the point where they were willing to hire me and work with me. Like, when I got done with graduate school, John D'Angelo hired me at Federal Highway Administration. I think part of that was getting to know each other through AAPT. And then going to NAPA eventually, I had gotten the chance to know Dave Newcomb. And I think AAPT, again, was a large part of us having the opportunity to get to know each other. And so, and then what AAPT does for young authors, or I guess anyone at in any career stage, is it gives you an opportunity to practice your public speaking, to practice your writing, your communication, networking skills, and those are all really important to advance, and especially to go up into higher leadership roles. And so AAPT is an opportunity for all of that. And then finally, being able to come into leadership roles and show that you can work with a team whether it's on the board or whether it's with a committee or a small group that needs to get something done. And then just show too that you can lead a group of people and make things better, which is kind of what we're all trying to do when it comes down to it, or hopefully we're all trying to do. And so again, AAPT just gives you those opportunities. So
good. So you've been coming to the symposium now for 17 years, we calculated that, right? So do you have any particular memorable events from any of those 17 years?
Yeah, so it's funny, when I was kind of thinking for this question, a lot of the stuff that first came into my mind was a lot of the social stuff. I was like, oh yeah, when we went to that Irish bar in Austin, or when we went and grabbed barbecue, or so those are all, of course, a lot of memorable moments around the fellowship, right? Mm-hmm. But then when I got serious about it and I started thinking, and it didn't even occur to me at the time, it's kind of looking back. And then hearing some other people, I'll get to the point I'm making in just a minute. But so probably a pivotal moment for me was when I was president and I was presiding over the meeting and the banquet, and I was 7 months pregnant, almost 8 months pregnant. And at the time, you're just living it. But now I continue to hear people talk about Becky McDaniel, and she was the second president of AAPT. Rita Leahy was the first. And when Becky was president, and at that banquet, she brought her daughter. So we all met her daughter, we all interacted with her, and people still remember that to this day, that Becky brought her daughter. And so, and I will always remember my AAPT because I was on the precipice of becoming a mother. And so anyways, that was just a very special AAPT to me. And also, the joy my AAPT friends had for me in that time in my life. I'm getting a little, so it was really special.
Audrey, you mentioned Becky McDaniel. Well, Rita Leahy was the first woman president of AAPT, followed by Becky McDaniel, then yourself. Mm-hmm. So what does that mean to you personally and AAPT as an organization?
Yeah, so I think for me personally, it was just the support of your peers, that are entrusting you to lead them, and recognizing, your skills and things like that. And the reason I say that is just because, a lot of people think, oh, she's a civil engineer, she has advanced degrees, this must have been easy, but it didn't. I've had to work really hard in school. It did not come naturally to me, and especially when I got to the PhD level, it can be very self-doubting depending on who you surround yourself with, or and with this industry and with AAPT, even though you might be challenged and stuff, they're not questioning you as a person or your worth. And so that just meant a lot to me, because I had a lot of self-doubt as to whether I truly deserved to be a researcher or, PhD and things like that. And so it was very humbling to me and very, very honoring. And then in terms of what it did for the organization is, again, I think it just further showed that this organization is about, I'm trying to think kind of how to say this, but if you're committed and you're passionate about the industry and you're contributing, you can lead. Whether you're a woman, whether you're from a different country, or whether, because we've had international leadership here, that anyone can have that opportunity. And so, and now it's kind of like, there's been 2 women in a row now, Joe and Amy, which is fantastic. And I think we're seeing a lot more women and diversity in terms of the organization. And so I think it was always, AAPT has always, to a point, been inclusive, but now we're being very intentional about it. And I think it's just made it better. So
when you think about AAPT in your time at the organization, where do you see AAPT's role, where it's been, where it is now, and where it's going?
Yeah, this is kind of a heavy question, I guess, because I guess there's so many people that I feel know the organization better than me that could probably really do this question more justice. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I hope to do this question some justice. But I think, first of all, it has such a rich history. The fact that we're celebrating 100 years, the fact that it's a volunteer organization and it is continuing to thrive, that is a huge testament to the organization and where it's been. And the things that endure in terms of like the discussion and being able to have long form papers and presentations and documenting it so we can not have to revisit the past and we can keep growing and learning. In terms of where we are now, I think we've really realized that the technical is what brings us all together, but at the same time, this is still an organization that needs to be managed and run almost like a business. Yeah, and so in terms of the current state of AAPT, I think we've also come to the realization that as much as we all want to talk about the technical aspects of asphalt pavements and focus on that, we still need to run AAPT, as an association and as a business. And so I think the board has done a very good job of realizing that that is part of their role. And so the fact that they don't have to analyze all the papers like they used to, we've created this editorial board. I think those have brought us to a good place where we can also focus on the things we need to do in terms of the governance and the financial situation of the association. And then looking into the future, I think really we're just going to continue to reinvent ourselves, maybe kind of too strong of a word, because we definitely want to keep what's good, but also just, I guess, really accommodating different ways of bringing folks into the organization, communicating with each other, documenting the papers and things like that. Today in the past president's lunch, we were talking about artificial intelligence and how can we use those tools to capture all this great knowledge that this organization has. And then I think there's also an opportunity for AAPT in the future to collaborate more with other associations and leverage off of each other, maybe even whether it's behind the scenes staffing, backroom staffing, things like that. So I think that kind of stuff will be explored in the future as well, because there's a lot competing for folks' time, whether you're going to NAPA, whether you're going to AASHTO, AAPT. And so I think AAPT will continue to have to think about how what their value is to folks as this world of competing attention and things like that. And so we're a very creative group, and so I have no doubt that we'll figure out ways to handle all that. So.
When you talked about your time as president and you shared with us one of your memorable moments, it was when Becky McDaniel brought her daughter to the dinner or the annual meeting. Does your family travel with you in your role at NAPA or in other areas of where you participate? Yeah. So they have traveled with me. I'm very fortunate at NAPA that NAPA is a very family-oriented association, and so they value having spouses and family there, and so it's almost a little bit of an unwritten expectation that my husband is at some of our meetings, and so that's created great opportunities for us to travel. My husband's been able to come to Hawaii with me. He's been able to go on international trips with me. But I think really one of the ones that stands out for me for AAPT is probably when I came to the realization that my husband was coming to the realization, I said that my husband might be the one, is we were actually dating. This was back in 2015. We had gotten pretty serious, had been dating, I guess, a year or so. And AAPT was in Portland. At the time, my husband was living in California, and he was planning on coming up and spending some time with me and being able to meet all the AAPT folks. I was happy to maybe kind of almost introduce him to one of my families, right? And he was sick. He got sick as a dog and with a nasty cold, and he still came. He still
came to the meeting. He rallied and met everyone, and it just meant a lot to me. And I think it also made a very good impression on all my friends and here. So and now we're married.
And now you're married, and you have a child together.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, congratulations.
Yeah. So thank you. So anyways, I think just like I said, it's important to NAPA. AAPT is also very accommodating for families. Like you'll see, like Jeff Rowe, he's always bringing his family. There's a whole group that brings their spouses, the ladies of AAPT, and they all go on a trip afterwards. And really, there are times I'd rather be almost with them on their trips, and doing what they do during the day rather than sitting in some of our meetings. But I've gotten to know the wives, husbands of my AAPT family and friends, and love them, just as much as the people in this industry. So I like that focus on family. Yeah.
Well, we talked about people look up to you as a role model. You're the president and CEO of NAPA, and you've been a past president of AAPT. So how do you balance all of these competing things in your life?
Yeah. So well, first of all, I think I'll mention my dad. Growing up, so my dad's an electrical engineer, and he pretty much left his work at work. When he was at home, he was at home, and he traveled a lot early in his career, but then he just decided, I don't want to travel that much, and so I'm sure he had to make some sacrifices, some decisions in his career. But the point is you just didn't see him slaving away at the office until late at night or on the weekend. He was very effective at work, and then he came home and was with his family. And so that was a great example for me. So I try to sometimes adhere to that as best I can. It doesn't always work. And then what I would say too is just having grace, learning to have grace with myself as I get older. I'm not going to be able to do everything, and really prioritizing. Okay, what needs to get done, and what can maybe slide, or what can I delegate? And then I would wrap up by saying, knowing it's doable. I've had some great role models in the industry. I mean, we have 2 kids. I have a bonus son, Marco, and then my daughter, Jory. But I know other people in this industry that have 3 kids, and they manage. And so knowing that other people can do it. And then finally, also just really, again, my husband, choosing wisely with my spouse. He is just an amazing man. He helps me to be able to do what I do, because he is wonderful at the home. He's a wonderful father, and he's a cook, he's a great chef. So, we eat well thanks to him. So anyways, I guess it's just, it's a kind of a team sport. I have a lot of people helping and supporting me, and then again, prioritizing. And here lately also, I'm just trying to be better about taking care of myself as well. And so I'll add one more thing is going kind of back to those role models within AAPT. I think that's also what's been helpful. Like there's, it does tend to be a male-dominated industry, although that's changing. But seeing a lot of those males and how they prioritized their family and contributed, and they made time for AAPT, but they also had their families. Those were just great role models for me. So in terms of what I wanted for a family and a career.
Thanks for your time, Audrey. It's been really, really nice sitting with you, and we look forward to many more years together.
Yeah, thank you, Dan, and thank you very much for doing this. So.